The last talk a little bit special, first because we are going to speak in English, and second because we are going to speak about research, about R&D, but focused from a private company point of view, okay? That it is a little bit different what we are used to see. Today the talk is going to be, is going to take part Xana Belastegui. She is the Chief Business Officer of a private company, Iden Biotechnology, that develops products to improve the production of the plant. So it's R&D focused to the agricultural sector. Xana joined the company in 2007, first as R&D project manager, later as R&D director, and now she is the main responsible of all the product development and business development area of the company. Okay? But before joining the company, she was doing the research career in Spain and in Germany, working in plant physiology. Okay? So today she's going to speak us about biotechnology and agriculture, that it is a successful team. Okay, so Xana, the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today, taking part in Jakin-mina talks, and also to have the opportunity to have this type of audience, because usually I have mainly business developers also. Sometimes scientists, people from regulatory or more on the commercialization side. So having the opportunity to speak with students that probably might have different questions to the usual ones is a very nice opportunity for me. So I hope you enjoy the talk, and I would like you not to wait to the end to ask questions. If you have something that you want to ask, or if there is something that you are not understanding, just please let me know and we can talk about it, okay? I don't want to talk and not have any feedback from you, okay? So, as Nora was saying, today we are going to talk about how biotechnology and agriculture can be a good team. Which are the good things that we can obtain from mixing biotechnology and agriculture. Well, I assume that everybody had a nice lunch today. I don't know, maybe a quick one, or maybe you had more time to have lunch today. I would like to ask you, more or less this week, how many pieces of fruit did you have? 2 a day?
3.
3 a day? Yeah, different ones?
Yes.
No, no different? Because you don't like them. So, I mean, you might have apples, bananas, strawberries. Sometimes now we can get, not very good ones yet, but we can get. Probably bread every day, no, for the sandwiches. Probably meat, the ones that eat meat. That also, to get meat, we need to feed the animals with corn, with soybean. So we need a lot of, in a lot of moments, we need all the vegetables and all the cereals in our diet. And I think that we are quite lucky, because in comparison to our parents, for example, or to even older generations, we usually open the fridge and have a lot of things to eat and to choose. This is more in this society. Not in every place in the world can open a fridge and have a lot of different food types to choose. Okay, so still, even if here we are lucky and we are usually able to obtain different types of food, this is not happening everywhere. In any case, how did we arrive to this? Because we didn't have so many choices always. So probably you've seen this, I don't know, in a science lesson. A lot of years ago, more than 10,000 years before Christ, the pre-Columbian community was trying to start first steps in domestication in agriculture, and started what is called today agriculture. Okay, they ate some plants that were looking more like, sorry, Nora, can we put down a little bit these slides so we can see maybe a little bit better than... So, let me see, where's the pointer? Yeah, okay. So, this is how the plant was looking at the beginning, and it was called teosinte. This was one of the plants that they have. Can you see there the ear? I cannot see it because it was very, very small. Okay, it was this one. When you compare it to this one, and it's not size related, it's a little bit different to the corn that we can see today, no? And this is the corn that we need to use for developing a lot of different fruits of the ones that we eat every day. So when archaeologists were looking at the different archaeological rests that they could find, they saw an evolution on how the ears from the Theosinte were evolving to what we see today as corn in the plant. When you travel around, and here in Navarra, also in Rioja, in Aragon, you can see in a lot of places fields of corn growing, and the plant can be this high or sometimes even more, 1 or 2 years per plant, this size. It was not that at the beginning, okay? So pre-Columbian community did a lot of work selecting, well, this seed looks a little bit bigger. Maybe we will use this one instead of the small one. Next generation, this plant looks bigger and it has a bigger ear. Then we will take this one for the next generation, and so on. And this way they were able to develop new varieties. Another example is the orange. Where is the orange coming from? Well, orange is coming not from Valencia, so no, yes, but it's not coming from Valencia. Originally, what research says from the origin, and part of this research is from Spanish research groups, that you can see here, the publication in Nature, that, as you know, is a very good magazine. Art is a scientific magazine. The orange is coming from Asia, so naranjas de la China, que solemos decir. So orange is usually is coming from the clementine and also the grapefruit. Okay, is a mix. It evolved in a lot of years, but the origin is from Asia, and it has evolved in lemons, in lime, in a lot of different varieties. Same case is, for example, for all this family that is cauliflower, broccoli, kale, and so on, is coming from mustard. Quite different to the cauliflower and to the broccoli. All this was obtained choosing plants, selecting one characteristic instead of another one, looking maybe for color or looking maybe for size or even for taste, and they were selecting year by year. Different communities and different people were selecting and obtaining these new plant varieties. So that's why now we have so many options in our table. But did they knew what they were doing? Well, not at the beginning. They didn't know. They were just looking the phenotype of the plant and saying, well, I like this plant because it's stronger, but I like the color of this fruit. So let's try to mix them and see what happens. Then our friend Gregor Mendel, the monk, came into the picture, and in the 19th century he also liked a lot of botany and agriculture, so he studied and did a lot of research around this, and he developed what is called the inheritance laws of Mendel. And you know this story for sure, selecting and showing that there are some characteristics that they are inherited together, and showing also that in the next generation we can always expect a percentage of the next generation being similar to one parent or to the other parent, or a mix of characters of both parents. So this was very helpful, because at least the farmers could expect more or less the amount of the next generation that could look like the one that they were looking for. Okay. What was useful for the Mendel law? As I was saying, if you know the character of one parent, that is the size of the ear, and the character of the other parent, that in this case is the size of the plant, because I don't want the plant to be too big, because if it's too big, then it doesn't really give enough energy to the ear. Then I cross them and I obtain 4 different individuals. Of course, this is very very typical example. It's not what always occurs. Okay, it's just to show the idea. Which one is the one that I like? Is this one. So this is the way in which plant breeders for years and years have been developing different varieties of each crop. And now we are able to see so many corn varieties, so many mustard varieties, so many tomato varieties that have different shape, different color, different taste. Okay? So this is one of the techniques that farmers have been using to obtain new products. But still, at that moment, we didn't know where that information was. Okay, so I know that this one is familiar for you because of the faces that we are putting. Okay, so what happened in this year? The discovery of the DNA structure. How we relate this discovery to what we were talking before. Before, the farmers were blind. They were just looking to the phenotype. I take this and this, let's see what happens. What happens when I know where the information stays? That I can take only that information. If I know which is the information that I am looking for, I don't need the rest. I just go and get that information, isn't it? So, because it was a very nice discovery, not only for agriculture, but also for health, for animal variety development also, they got the Nobel Prize, the three of them, okay? And probably you know that they forgot her.
Yes.
So the laughs were because you were talking about this recently, that they forgot the woman, or because you knew the story? Because you were commenting on this right now. Both?
Yeah.
Okay. So I assume because, 2 weeks ago it was also the Women's Day, so it's normal that you know. So they forgot Rosalind Franklin. Of course, none of them said she deserved also the Nobel Prize. We are used to that, hoping that is changing. Okay, what about market-assisted breeding? We know now where the information is. And we know the type of characteristics that we would like our crop to have. This is how we were doing it so far. I see the characteristic, I mix, I obtain a progeny, and I select the one that I like. But with the DNA information, what I can say is this information is here, somewhere, and this one is here. When I get the next progeny, I don't need to just look at it. I go, I find the DNA sequence that I am looking for, and I am really selecting an individual that is taking all the characteristics that I like. So I select the best one. This procedure can take 10 to 12 years. This one can be 6, 7. So I am really gaining a lot of time to take a new variety to the market and to take a new variety to the consumer. So market-assisted breeding, mixing the knowledge about the importance of the characteristics and the knowledge about the DNA, that it was directly linked with those characteristics, it was a huge step in plant variety development, because I could really select the good individual, and I don't need to bother about the rest, I just discard them. Okay, so this has really made a big difference. There is another technique that can also help us to obtain a new variety in a quicker way. That is mutagenesis. Mutagenesis is also more directed than just crossing two parents and having a look to the phenotype of the new individuals that I get in the progeny. Why? Because what I am doing in this case is obtaining new plants that have one single change in one single code of the DNA. Okay? So when I analyze those DNA sequences, because I know the one that I am looking for, I go for it, I see the change, this is the one that I want. Then I make it grow and I see the phenotype. Is growing as I expected? Yes, I got it. Okay, so again, I am gaining a lot of time. This can happen naturally because there are a lot of new varieties that just came because of natural variation, too much sunlight and stress on the plant, just not good cross when they were breeding and they were developing the seeds. So in all these cases, it's a natural variation of the plant, and there are plenty of products that we eat every day that come out of this natural variation. But I can also induce the mutagenesis. So I can induce a mutagenesis in the seeds of the corn, for example, and then look for the ones that I am interested in. And again, I will be able to obtain a new variety. All these techniques were used by the different companies and breeders for many years, some of them in parallel. And from 1940 to 1980, 1990 more or less, happened what it was called the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution in agriculture refers to a period of time in which the farmers, the breeders first and the farmers later, were able to increase the production of the crops like exponentially, okay? You can see in blue 1960 and in orange 1990, 1995, you see that the difference is huge in what they were able to obtain. Why did this Green Revolution happen? Because of all the use of these techniques, a lot of the varieties of the crops were very high yielding. Okay, the yield, the production of the plant increased a lot thanks to that breeding. In addition to this, the fertilizers, the products against pests like insects or fungi, or they were developed. So they were used in agriculture together with the new varieties. What happened? That the plant was growing with a lot of food, nitrogen, potassium, calcium, so it had a lot of nutrients, it was high yielding, and it was very strong because it was protected from the pests, from the insects and from the fungi and the bacteria. So the yields really boost a lot in like 40, 50 years. So that's why it's called a Green Revolution. This really made a difference because the population was increasing a lot, and there was not enough food to feed everybody. So with this improvement in crop yield, we were able to feed everybody. And more or less at the end of the Green Revolution, 1983. It also started to appear in the market, the genetically modified organisms, the GMOs, in agriculture. Okay, this is the date in which they appear in agriculture. Probably you have studied about genetic engineering in plants, and not only in plants. In this case, one of the first products to come into the market or to be approved was tobacco. Then, of course, a lot of effort has been centered in corn because it's one of the main crops that we have. So now we have corn that has a higher yield, or that is resistant to chemicals, or that shows a quality characteristic of interest. But not only corn. We have potatoes, we have apples, we have soybean, we have mustard, we have a lot of crops, around 8 or 9, that are commercially available. And I am talking worldwide. When we are talking about Europe, we can produce here in Europe mainly corn. That is a GMO, and only two different varieties. And the rest of the GMOs that can be present in Europe are all imported. Okay, we buy them to other countries, like for example the soybean. And we need to buy the soybean because 95% of the soybean in the world is genetically modified to be resistant. Because if not, you wouldn't be able to have soybean. Okay, and most of the soybean that we eat here, or that we use for other uses, is coming from Argentina. Okay, among all the genetic engineering tools is the gene editing. Do you have any idea about what is CRISPR? CRISPR. Sorry. Let's see if it wants to go back. CRISPR is a very new technique that has been developed recently. Yes, CRISPR technology. No.
No.
So you have heard about genetic engineering, about GMOs. Among the tools that we have to engineer a new plant variety, also other organisms, but today we're talking about plants. The GMOs are one of the options, because I am usually what I am doing is increasing the number of copies of one gene that is already in the plant to obtain a better performance of that plant. And sometimes, like in the case of plants resistant to a herbicide, for example, I need to introduce a new gene. But there are other options, like for example, what Simplot, the company Simplot, or Open Fruits has done, that it's gene editing. And gene editing is changing a part of a gene or a single nucleotide, a single piece of the gene with gene editing techniques. So it's a very directed tool. The last tool similar to this one that has appeared is CRISPR. CRISPR is, it looks that it's going to be a very revolutionary tool in the next years in health, in animals, in plants, in bacteria, because it allows to make very small changes and it doesn't leave any residue inside the organism. Okay, so it can be very helpful to study new diseases, for example, to obtain new cures to diseases, to develop new plant varieties, but also, for example, new bacteria that we can use with industrial purposes. And is, as I say, one of the gene editing tools. And I think it's important also to know that one of the fathers of this technology that works with bacteria is this guy, Francis Mojica. He's a researcher at the University of Alicante, and he's been nominated last year for the Nobel Prize and is again nominated this year. If you type the name in Google, you will find tons of references about him, and I think it's something to be proud of, because it's not so common that in a technology that is going to revolution worldwide the way that we engineer the organisms, there is a Spanish researcher, and it is acknowledged to be, because at the beginning it was only British, American, and now they are talking about him, okay, and they are making movies about him and reports about him. So I think it's important to know it. In these two products, this apple is an apple that it doesn't get brown when it's cut, because when you know that in the US they like to have all the fruit in pieces in a plastic bag, no, and they just take this for tea or for. So one of the problems that they had was that the apples, of course, you cut them and they get brown. They don't like that. So they made a change that is not a GMO, it's a gene editing, and they obtained an apple that is able to stay white without browning for many, many hours. And the same with the potato. But also with the potato there is another characteristic, and is that it has less acrylamide, which is toxic for us. Okay, so when you cook it, it releases less acrylamide, and that is a very good thing from the health point of view. So probably in the next 5 years, we will see a lot of products in agriculture coming out to the market using these gene editing tools. Okay?
One question.
Yes.
So, in your opinion, what's more efficient, genetic editing or GMO?
It depends on what you are looking for. On a GMO, you are able to introduce a new characteristic or enhance a characteristic from that crop. With the gene editing, you are not introducing anything. You are touching a gene, and this can mean that you knock out that gene, so that gene doesn't work anymore, you obtain another characteristic. But what you are not able to do is to introduce a new characteristic to that crop. And introducing doesn't mean that you are introducing a foreign gene, just that you are helping the plant to develop that characteristic. So it depends on your objective. And some products might have a mixture of both, depending on what I am looking for to the market. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, so a summary of the main improvement techniques are this one: mutagenesis, naturally or induced; random mutagenesis, I have to look for it and then I choose the individual; transgenesis is introducing a new gene from another species to a plant; cisgenesis, I am using is again is like the transgenesis, but what I am doing is boosting the expression of a characteristic in my plant; and gene editing, what we were talking about. Okay, so far so good with all the technologies that we can use. As you can see, biotechnology is behind most of these ones, because I need to know about the characteristics of the plant, the ones that I like, how they are related to DNA sequences in the plant, and I need to somehow touch or change that plant in order to obtain the variety that I want, or the new product that I want. Why are all these techniques important? Of course, they are important because we like to have new things in the market, but most importantly because we have a big challenge. As a global community, we have a big challenge, and is that we continue increasing the population. The numbers say that we will be close to 10 billion by 2050, and this is the percentage of Earth area that is arable, so that we can really use that this is the percentage that is land, and the rest is not land that we can live on. Okay, from that land, only 10% is arable to produce food or feed. I mean, food for us, feed for the cattle. Okay, it's not that much. This is the arable land per person in 2010. But the question is that we are increasing, so we don't have more land, but we are more people to eat. So what can we do? Same land, more people. What can we do? What we were seeing on the Green Revolution.
Try genetically the food to obtain more seeds or obtain more fruits.
So more production.
Yes.
More production. So we need the second Green Revolution, no? We need more. It's true also that we are using a lot of fertilizers, a lot of chemicals, and that we also need to find a balance, no? Because we need to produce more, but we have to take care also of our earth, because if not, we won't have even that 10% of land to use. So this is a big question, how to produce food to feed everybody, because it's not only us, I mean us. Here we have usually everybody is able to have at least three moments of eating at the day, no? At least breakfast, at least lunch, at least dinner. But other countries that they don't have that. And we have to remind this, it's a global challenge, it's not a local challenge. Which are the conditions or the challenges and the conditions that the crops have to face and that have an effect on the yield? When you have a look to this graph, you see in dark green, this is the average yield of the different crops. This is how much we lose because of pests, like insects, fungi, etc. And this is related to the climate. Okay? So you see that if we help the plants to tolerate or to be resistant to the climatic conditions or to perform better, no? For example, in a climate that there is not much water, and I help the plant to be stronger in that climate and not to need so much water to obtain the same amount of seed, I am increasing this production. Okay, so it's important to understand which are the factors that are affecting this yield production. Sorry. So the question is, the biotechnology, what is looking for? Is looking to give the farmers and the growers new tools or new solutions in very different ways. Not a single solution is going to be, the only one. Impossible, not one. So, taking into account everything that we were talking about so far, here we have the chemical fertilizers, we have plant protection products that are pesticides, and plant growth promoters that are chemical products that help the plant to grow stronger and more resistant to any stress. What else do we have? We have biological products that they started to be developed already some years ago, but only few of them, and now there are a lot of companies, big, medium and small companies, trying to develop products that can be applied to the crops, they are a little bit more friendly with the soil, with the plant, with the environment, and those are fertilizers, biostimulants and biopesticides, okay? Usually coming from natural origins and natural sources, and a little bit more friendly with the environment. And from the crop perspective, what we were talking about, we have plant breeding, we have genetically modified organisms, we have mutagenesis, and we have new breeding techniques. So this is all the toolbox that we have. Do you think that any of this one is going to be more helpful than another one in the future?
GMOs and mutagenesis maybe they will be more efficient than chemical fertilizers, but I think that we need everyone to get what we want.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? No? I should give you some coffee before coming. Okay, I agree that some of them can be maybe more efficient in some cases. It's true also that we have to have into account how much time and money we need to develop the different solutions. So probably, as you were saying, we will need a little bit of every of them. Hopefully, in the future, not the near future, but in the future, we will be able to use the ones that are more friendly with the environment and that help us to obtain what we like, meaning achieving a solution for that global challenge in the most efficient and quicker way. Okay. Okay. So far, any question? Any doubt? Something that you want to say? No? Okay, so let's go to an example, because probably you know names of companies that are already selling fertilizers or chemicals or plant varieties or even GMOs, because they appear in the news. So these ones are big companies, multinational companies, but there are also other type of companies, medium and small companies, that are trying to be a part of this solution and develop products that can be useful for the growers and at the end for the consumer, because finally someone has to eat what is coming from here. And I would like to show you also an example that is the company that I am working at. Why? Because I would like you to see opportunities for when you either finish your studies now, or for when you finish a module that you do, or the university, or I think that one of the problems that we usually have, or I had, when I had to choose the career that I wanted to study, I was not one of those persons that at 3 years old and knew that I was going to be a doctor. No? So I was keeping changing, I was veterinary and then economist and then whatever. So when I had to choose which career to do, the information that I had from what I was going to do after finishing the career was not very clear. You can be a teacher, okay, you can be a teacher studying more or less everything, no? Maybe you can work in a laboratory if you do something that has to do with science, okay, but it's not very... So what I would like is to give you a hint of what happens if I choose to study agronomy engineering, or biologist, or biochemist, or chemist. These are examples of careers that can have a place to work here in a company like Iden, and of course by extension in a medium or big multinational company that is working on the seed or on the agricultural input sector. So as we were saying before, we have a lot of challenges, no? We have to produce more on a climate that is completely crazy lately, that we are expecting sun and then it rains, or there is snow. The spring should be starting, and instead of that we are getting snow in the next week. So the crops also, they get a little bit crazy, they don't know what they have to do. So yield is not as good as we would like to. In other regions of the world, like Africa or some parts of Asia, they have very severe drought, and the crops, they don't yield as they should, but they need to feed their animals that they need to feed themselves. So there is a lot of place to do things that can help. So what do we do at Iden? There are problems and there are needs, and we try to develop solutions. This is a very extreme example, okay? But you can see that we work in different stages with plants, and we try to develop a solution. How? Trying to understand who has the problem, how can I help? Has the biotechnology any tool to help? Let's see. So what do we do at Iden? What we do at Iden is to work in two areas. One of them is trying to improve the varieties, the crops, to develop new varieties that are higher yielding, what we were talking before, or that they are resistant or tolerant to abiotic stress, like cold, like drought, like saline stress. And on the other hand, we try to help that crop with new products. Instead of fertilizers, biostimulants. Let's try to develop products that can help the plant grow stronger or faster, or to produce more fruits, etc. And also biopesticides that protect the plant because they target the insect or the fungi, so I don't have the pests, I grow happier. Okay? So this is what we do at Iden, and for this we need a lot of different profiles of people. Of course, most of them are science related, but not all of them. We also need people from economy and administration and regulatory. Okay. How did Iden start it? We are a very good example of how the research is translated into something that arrives to the market. Okay? The people that founded the company comes from a research group from the National Research Council in Spain, the CSIC, that is the IDAB, okay, the Biotechnology Institute that is in Pública in Navarra. The only one that is serious is Tutera, which is the head of the group, of the research group. So they had, and they still do, a lot of good research that tries to find solutions that are interesting for the market. And from this group, the company was created in order to try to develop products that can arrive to the market. Because the researchers, they have to do research. They don't have to sell the product. They have to do research because that's what they are good at, and we need them there. Okay? And they need to find ways to transfer all those good results to the market. And Iden is one of those tools. And as I said, we have two areas of activity. One is crop improvement and the other one is biologicals. In the crop improvement, we have identified some gene sequences that when we play with them and we touch them and we make more copies of those gene sequences in the plant, we see that the plant can produce more. And we don't see this in the lab, we see this in the field, okay? We take really our new varieties to the field and we see that they produce more. And we have mainly technologies that are related to high yield and technologies that are related to obtain crops that are stronger under abiotic stress. So I will just show you one example that it's an improved potato variety with a gene that is called SUSI. It's called SUSI. So we made the potato plants to have more copies of that gene. So the potato was able to have in the tuber more starch and better starch. Okay, so that's how we obtained it. Higher yield because there were more tubers with more starch. Okay, and that starch can be translated in many things because starch is used on plastics, on reactives, on painting, on ethanol, on many uses. So we were able to see that our starch, this starch that we obtained in the tubers, was also producing at the end of the day more ethanol. Okay, so we are feeling a need. There is need for biological sources for bioethanol production. This is a variety that can help. Okay, but also the gene has been taken to other crops like barley, like corn, like wheat, and when we finish with the development of these varieties, we will have varieties with more yields and better quality characteristics. Okay. The other area that we work on is biologicals, mainly biostimulants and biopesticides. And so far, you will see that we have tested those products, mainly the biostimulants, in field. And again, when we use these products instead of chemicals on the plant, we are able to boost the yield of the crop. How do we do this? The approach that we are taking is using microorganisms to obtain the biostimulants that we apply in the plant. Okay? This is not the use of microorganisms to help the plants is not something new. There are many microorganisms that they are around the plant and they help the plant to grow better. But in our case, we are not using the microorganisms that are close to the plant. We are using any microorganism, and what do? We ferment those microorganisms, okay? First at small scale and then a big scale in fermentation tanks. We make a fermentation process, this is like the wine, but for another thing, okay? There are many examples, mainly related to the alcoholic sector, but there are many examples for this, and to the industrial, the white industry, like for example, obtaining enzymes for detergents or enzymes for pharmaceutical uses or proteins, okay? For pharmaceutical use. So we do fermentation in big tanks, and then what do? We remove the microorganism, we don't need it anymore because we already obtained all the metabolites that the microorganism was able to produce and which have the biostimulant activity. Okay, so we clean the product, we formulate it and we package it, and we have our biostimulant. When we apply this biostimulant in the field to the plants, what do we see? We irrigate the plant or we apply it on the leaves, and what can we see? In this case, in tomato, you can see that compared to a control, that is, it didn't have any treatment, we can increase the production in 6, 10, 12, 23, depending on the product and the dose that we are using. Talking about increasing around 5 to 10% in a hectare is a lot of kilograms of tomato. Okay, so it really makes a difference for the farmer. If the price of the product is something that the grower can pay, if it fits with his economics, then it really makes a difference for him at the end of the cycle. So here you can see other examples of the effects that we can obtain with our biostimulants. That are changing the growth pattern. You see that the treated that are on the right, on my right, they have more height, okay, and they look greener than the other ones. When you see the root of the plant, this is the one that is treated. Look how long it is. This in the field will mean that the plant is able to capture the water from a very deeper place in comparison to the other one. Okay, so it really makes a difference. Because if there is a drop, the water is not on the upper part, but on the next layer. And here, this is under draft conditions, and you see the control is almost dead, and the other one is still alive. Okay, so that's what biostimulants do, to give vigor to the plant, to help her to grow better, faster, and produce more fruits. Okay, and the biopesticides is an area which I am not going to show you anything here, but I wanted to let you know that biopesticides is a new group of products that started to be developed by different companies already some years ago. And why? Because we were using a lot of chemicals as insecticides, nematicides, fungicides, and in some cases too much quantity of those products. And the soil and the environment is suffering because we have been using them for many years. So we need to find new solutions for the growers because they need them. If we don't apply pesticides or biopesticides, we won't have the same amount of yield, so the prices of the food will go higher, and also we won't have enough variety of food, okay, because we will lose crops if they are not able to cope with the different diseases. So the biopesticides come to give a solution, or to try to give a solution to respect to the environment, but still give a solution to the growers to maintain those yields that we need for the global challenge that we cannot forget.
But biopesticides, are biopesticides as efficient as normal pesticides?
That's a very good question. I would say that it depends, but in general, biopesticides, they don't have the same efficiency as a chemical, because when you apply the chemical, the grower or the farmer is very used to apply the chemical once the pest is in place. When I see it, and I can see the percentage of incidence that it has, then I apply the chemical because I know that it will kill them. Biopesticides need a different management. They cannot be applied in the same way. Some of them, they have a more preventive use, and this also needs a change of mind from the farmers. Okay, they are very used to apply products in a way, and it's normal. And we need to train the farmers to use these products in a different way. In general, when you compare applying at the same time a biopesticide and a chemical, you won't see exactly the same efficiency. If you apply the biopesticide in the way that the producer is telling you that you need to apply it, with the preventive and enough time before, probably you will see an efficiency that comes more at the same level. But still, these are products that they haven't evolved enough. Okay, so really to your question, still we need to obtain better biopesticides. In this case, we will probably have the same condition as before. Not only the biopesticides will be the products to be used in crops. Okay, we will probably need a mix of chemicals and biopesticides, because we don't have enough solutions from the biopesticides right now for all the diseases. So we still need a lot of time to develop new products, so in the meantime they have to live together, okay? But it's true, and I don't have that information here, that both in biostimulants and in biopesticides, when you see how these products are growing in the market, the rate at which they are growing is like 12-13% per year. That is related to markets that are growing, that are in expansion. Okay, chemicals or pesticides are in a more flat rate because they already is a market that is established. So biopesticides and biostimulants still have to grow a lot in the next years and bring more solutions to the market. Okay, and I was talking before about profiles of people, the training that the people need to work in a company like Iden, for example, or like Bayer, or like Limagren, or which are those profiles? I was telling you before: biologists, biochemists, agronomy engineers, chemists, economists, of course. All these different profiles that I am explaining now or mentioning now are among these people. This is part of our staff. It's an old picture from 1.5 years ago. We need to change it because now we have some new people working. And here you will see them more working, okay? Understanding, this is what they do. They work in the lab, and you will see now some pictures just to show you how it looks like, okay? Because I am talking here about a company that works in biotechnology, and how does that look? I mean, okay, probably you've seen some laboratories, but this is the real life of a company, okay? Meetings, fermenters, growth chambers, etc. Because we are a very young company, we have around 12 years since we were created, but it's also run by a very young team. And we have an international vision. We really would like that our products arrive to many different countries. We work with other external experts that can help us in that strategy and to arrive to different markets. And here you can see some of them. So you see people from America, Spanish. This is Francis Mojica that I was mentioning before. This was before he was nominated to the Nobel Prize last year. He accepted to be in our expert panel, and of course we are very happy about that. This is another researcher from the SSC working with gene editing techniques. A regulatory expert, strategy and business expert, another strategy and business expert in US market, and a regulatory expert in Europe. This is part of our expert panel. And these are some views of our facilities, so you can have an idea of how a small company working in biotech looks like. With the agrobiologicals area, and also the growth chambers, because we do, and you will see now in the next picture, we have to validate the products that we develop at very different stages, and one of them is the growth chamber. And then we have a greenhouse in which we test also the products that we are developing, because this is real life, okay? This is real life. If what I do doesn't work here, it's not going to help the farmers, so I can do anything with that. And this is what we do. Try to meet the global challenges, giving our small piece to try to fill that puzzle. And because there is not a work that is only in the lab or at the office, here you can see also some other people that we have had visiting us from the family. Is the only way that they understand what we do. Sorry, because when I go home and I try to explain what I am doing, no one understands. So if I take them to the lab or to the office, then they will be able really to see what we are trying to do. Okay. So we had different visits from children, and this is our visits to other countries. In this case, is India, in which we have a joint venture, another company that we are trying to develop there to commercialize our products, and it's one of the very good parts of the job that we do, having a global view, understanding global problems, because as I said before, we can look local, but we have to look global, okay, to understand what the biotechnology can do for agriculture. And I think that's all. So, any questions, any comments, any doubts? have to do the questions in English?
You can do the questions in Spanish. I can help.
I don't know, is anyone here thinking of going on science side, on biology, on biochemistry? No? Agronomy? Any of you is going to go on science? Maths? Physics? Yes? Ah, that also has to do with agriculture. It's not here, I didn't show that, but it also has to do. Data, big data, that also has to do with agriculture. Anyone else? No? ¿Todos para letras? Then? Yes, medicine.
Medicine.
Yes. Nutrition. Any chemists? No? No? Okay, well, from my side, I think that's all. Thank you very much for your time. And I hope that at least I gave you a picture of what the biotechnology could do for the agriculture. Okay?
Thank you so much.